Hello, welcome at 5 Minutes with Errol Musk. The main South African Sunday newspaper, The Rapport, has an article dated June 2020 with the header, Elon Musk was raised by books. Actually, Errol, I've experienced you as a running encyclopedia.
Me?
Yes, you. But when I read the article, it seemed to me that it was written by two authors, as page 1 and page 2 actually contradicted each other.
Yes.
So I have a few questions on this article. They wrote that Elon did not receive any financial support from you when he left South Africa. He was 2 weeks short of 18 when he departed to US. What is your comments on that?
Well, Elon finished matric in 88, I think it was, and he at Victoria Boys High, and then he, I thought of enrolling him in Cape Town University. We took him down there. He didn't like that, so he said his attitude was, well, I may as well go to Victoria University, which I think is a very good university. But anyway, but it's Afrikaans. And he's English speaking, so that's difficult. But at any rate, so he started his first year at Victoria University, and I think he enrolled in economics and such like, and so during the course of that that first 6 months of university, I noticed that he was getting very, very depressed. Mm-hmm. And it came to me on a certain day when he was not inclined to join us socially. I looked at him and I realized, and something came to me. I said, "Would you like to go and study in the United States?" Now, he'd been to the United States with me, so he immediately said yes. So he set off 11 days later. Of course, I gave him a return ticket and money to spend. He didn't have to pay. We arranged him that he would stay with friends and relatives. So it was, an opportunity for him to go overseas. He left June the 11th, which was the start of the summer holidays there. So he had plenty of time to check out where he might want to go to university in the United States, which was only going to start in September. So, he went, and he had of course funds. So and I of course had him call me regularly. It wasn't so easy to send funds overseas in those days, but you could if you asked. Elon never asked for any funds, and he found jobs here and there, and on his cousin's farm. I'm sure they paid him a little bit, and so.
But can I ask you, what was the exact funds that you gave Elon for Zip2?
Oh, like Zip2. All right. Well, when he during the course of their university period, I took over all the money. It was difficult to take money out of South Africa. It was illegal, actually. So I took money out by traveller's checks, and taking my mother and my wife and whoever to have the extra traveller's checks, and we sort of claimed that they were business traveling and everything. And so I was able to give them all three children the full amount of money that they would have got had they stayed in South Africa to go to university. And of course, I brought them out to South Africa as well. It was very expensive. It was a very expensive thing at the time to have their holidays here. But so when he finally started Zip2, I got a message first from him that he's going to go to Stanford, and that he would like to enroll for a doctorate and so on. So and he said he needed 20,000. So I mean, there was still a lot of time ahead. So I mean, I had a couple of months or 3 months or something before Stanford would start. So I did start, contemplating what I can do about that. Now, it's very important to realize that South Africa, we were very well off before 1985. Very well off, very much more well off than other people. And anyway, but after 1985, fight against apartheid from overseas became very harsh. And then the local president made a speech called the Rubicon speech, in which he said there will never be a black government in South Africa. And the result was that immediately after that, in the years that followed, all of the kind of work that I did, development, property development, came to a halt. And architects that had been architects for large buildings and skyscrapers and so on were reduced. I know one who was reduced to making leather hats, and another one was reduced to tooling leather belts, and another one opened a grocery store, which he proudly told me did without laying out any money. But anyway, so it was a very, very difficult time. But very fortunately for us, I had quite a big private airplane, and a big twin engine plane, and it was, it could fly as high as the jets and everything, and airlines and so on. It was a very big airplane. And I was going to sell this in the UK because I couldn't sell it here. You couldn't actually sell anything here. Nobody had any money. And so I thought I would take it over there. And then on the way, I happened to stop at Lake Tanganyika, and the people building the runway at Lake Tanganyika, they saw the plane and asked me, and then I told them, and they said they'd like to buy it. So they bought it for the same amount, and that I would have got overseas. And so that was quite nice, and very nice people, and I still communicate with them regularly. And so in exchange, they gave me money, and they gave me emeralds, cut already emeralds, and also opportunity to obtain more rough emerald from their emerald deposit that they had. And so it was a shake hands, we are friends type of situation. I mean, we never even filled in any documents. I mean, that's Africa. The wonderful thing about Africa, you could say. Anyway, so I would trust those people today, with anything. Anyway, so luckily for us, we had emeralds, and I at first had never seen really an emerald, but I started taking some of I received initially 108 emeralds, cut emeralds. So I started beautiful emeralds, and the best in the world, and I took them to jewelers. I started off with the very bottom jewelers. Then I finally realized I have to go to the really top jewelers. And when I met the really top jewelers, they wanted to take all the emeralds and sell them all, But anyway, I sort of parceled them out, and they were sold on a regular basis over the next few years. And I started cutting emeralds. I employed a cutter to cut the rough that was sent to me to make more emeralds. And so we were able to weather the period 85 to 90 and even beyond that because of the emeralds. Now, the emerald business was a cash business, and there's been sort of criticism about me saying we couldn't close our safe. Now, we didn't have a very big safe. I mean, we had a fair safe, and everything in the business was cash. So I was often coming home with what looked like loaves of bread in a bag, but in fact it was cash. So it wasn't millions, but I mean, we had to get it into the safe. So that's where I stuffed the safe. We stuffed the safe as much as we could, but it was, the notes of those days were giant. So I mean, we're not talking about super millions, but there was a lot of money that went into the safe, and that's where I talk about how we had to try and close the safe.
And so Elon did get financial support from you.
Yes, well, when they started Zip 2, that was 5 years later. That was after university. The emerald business had actually folded because the Russians had brought out an artificial emerald in 1990, which called the Byron, which is a perfect emerald, but it's made in a laboratory. So the price of emeralds dropped by about 90%. So you could not sell emeralds anymore. And I was surprised at the Plaza Hotel in New York to see jewelry being sold with these emeralds, with these fake emeralds. And today people don't buy the fake emeralds because it's been shown that they are grown in layers and that they are not the same as natural emerald. So the natural emerald business has recovered. Anyway, coming back to 1995, I was asked by Elon for funds. So I mentioned that he was going to go to Stanford. Then suddenly I got this message that he's not going to Stanford. He's going to start a .com business. Now, this is 95. I didn't really know what a .com business was. We didn't have internet or anything. So but I said I'll send what I can. Now at that point I didn't have any cash. Things were very hard in South Africa. The black government had just taken over. People had left the country in droves. May and her whole family left the country in '89. People left with the clothes on their back. They just got out of South Africa, and we unfortunately lost 2/3 of our most capable people, I would say. Anyway, so what I did have is I had one movable asset, and that was my yacht, which was a 48-foot yacht built in New Zealand, which is a really beautiful boat, and which I had purchased for $400,000. And I wanted to sell it, but I could not sell it at all until I offered it to a yacht business for $100,000. And they thought I was crazy, but anyway, I said yes, 100,000, you can have it, and a 17-foot Zodiac with a 35 horsepower outboard motor for 5,000. So that was ridiculous. So they took the yacht immediately, and I had 105,000. So I sent this to Elon, but I had to send it through Israel, because it was illegal to send money out of the country, and I sent it through Israel, through people that I didn't know. I only knew one person. And once I gave them the money, they said they were taking a commission. I don't know what the commission was, but I think the amount that reached Elon was about $30,000. And I was very pleased to hear that they got that. And Kimball subsequently told me that it was that money that helped them get through. And so what they say about Elon saying I didn't help them, that's not true. That's been made up. And it was only, I sent the money to, they started in about the June, as I say, in the early summer of the holidays. Then I sent the money in about the August, which I can show on my bank account. And they in December received $3.8 million in support from a company that wanted them to develop data programs for newspapers to go onto the internet. And so from that point onwards, everything was fine. Mm-hmm. And within 2.5 years, Elon and Kimball were both multimillionaires, dollar millionaires. Mm-hmm. So there was no need for any further funding. Mm-hmm. And that little bridge that I sent them, as small as it was, Kimball told me, as you're sitting next to me, he said to me, Dad, without that money, we wouldn't have gone through. So they've changed the narrative now. I don't mind. It's not important to me. What's important to me is that they've done well.
So if I can ask something else, Elon's attitude towards money, that's also referred to in this article. What is your comments on that?
Elon's attitude towards money. Well, Elon was a strange boy. I mean, he never spent his pocket money. So, for example, I remember on one occasion, it was a holiday or something, there were no ATMs in those days. So I don't think there were, and you could, we wanted to go somewhere, but we somehow, for some reason, we didn't have cash, and only the garages, the petrol gas stations, only took cash. So we didn't know what to do. So Elon said, I've got some money in my drawer. So we went to his drawer, and we actually pulled out $1,500 from his drawer. It was in hundreds and hundreds of coins, and it was mostly his pocket money. It was his pocket money, and he just never spent it. So he's never been a type of person he's not money orientated.
Oh,
and if he wanted something, particularly either him or Kimball or Tosca, I'd get it for them. But there was never anything a time when he expressed any sort of great need for anything like money.
Thank you, Errol. The author also wrote you focused on building wealth and that you managed.
Wealth.
Yeah, that you were focusing on building wealth and that you focus on your children as projects. So I see this comment actually as totally contradicted by Elon's school friend Danny Warnick, that described many enjoyable weekends on your horse farm and the Fall River in the article. The same
Fall
article.
River, yes.
Yes. Yeah, so this completely contradicts page 1 of this article. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't think you teach your children as a project, but you do realize you've got to prepare them for life. And that applied to anybody who joined my firm, my company. You know, if they were short on knowledge on anything, then you've got to fill that in if they're going to be any use. So you I suppose you do the same in a way with your children, all parents, not just me. And no. Oh, and what was the other part of the question?
Yeah, Danny Warnick described that they had many enjoyable weekends on your horse farm and the Fall River.
Yes, we did. Danny Warnick, I remember very well. Very nice friend. Elon spent all his time with Danny, or nearly all his time. Danny was with us, came spend holidays with us, and he stayed with us. I think he learned to ride horses, he learned to water ski, all sorts of things like that. And he was a lovely boy. And I remember how proud of he was of his father, who was a diesel mechanic. And I said to him, Danny, there's nothing better than being a diesel mechanic, let me tell you that. But anyway, you know.
Oh, can we go to the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. So what else is that question?
Then the relationship between the siblings. What is your viewpoint, and was there a prerequisite when you gave Elon money for Zip 2 that Kimball should be included?
Oh, yes. Because circumstances were so harsh in South Africa. I mean, they were really, really harsh. I mean, you know, nothing. They talk about having a hardship in the US. I was in the US in December and January. I mean, they're not having any hardship like we have no idea what hardship is. But we were in hardship. And the country was in hardship. I mean, you know, people were desperate. And white communities started living in tents in caravan parks and so on and so forth. And, so I didn't think I would be able to send any more money because I couldn't sell anything. I actually owned 50 stands, urban or lots, in the prime suburb. But I couldn't sell them. I couldn't do anything with them. And I had to pay tax on them, but I couldn't sell them. So I said, look, you must include Kimball in this. And if you are successful, you must also help Tosca later.
Okay, thank you on that one. Then they wrote that Elon said you predicted that he will be back in South Africa in 3 months and that he will not be a success and that you called him an idiot. Please clarify, I do not understand.
Oh, well, okay, rubbish.
Yeah, I mean,
Rubbish.
Danny Warnick wrote in the same article, he saw you as a very caring father to Elon, always encouraging Elon with everything. So it was very contradicting to me in the same article.
Well, it's absolute rubbish. And let me tell you, I learned in primary school, don't call somebody an idiot. Don't say to somebody you are a this or a that. Unless you want, don't mind having a black eye, or bloody nose. So I learned very soon on that issue, and I'm sure others do too. But so I have this strange situation that my brother, he's quite a headstrong guy. He tells people straight out, you're talking rubbish. I've never, you're an idiot, but I wouldn't do that. And so I might say to Elon, don't be an idiot. I might say to anyone, don't be an idiot if they were going to do something. Don't be an idiot. That doesn't mean you are an idiot.
But can I ask you, when he left,
yes,
what did you think in your mind as a father?
Oh, yeah, I
never.
No.
And what did you think about the
No, I never gave it. He'd been
potential?
overseas with me so much that I, so many times to every country in the world, that I wasn't concerned particularly as long as he phoned me.
Did you know that he go with all this potential? Did you
No, well,
recognize that
he was
has
just
this
out of
cleverness?
school, so I wanted him to see for himself what things were like, and so there was not the slightest mention that you're going to be back or something. Well, you're not going to work. I mean, that's rubbish. I never spoke like that to anybody in my life. And you can ask any of my other children if I've ever said anything like that to them, and they'll tell you never. Dad always over praises us. So anyway, but it wasn't 5 months that Elon left that Kimball and I joined him in the United States, and we did a 6-week tour across, right across the United States and Canada to about, I don't know, 20 states, to have a look at everywhere, to see what we saw everywhere. And Kimball and I met Elon in New York, and we did this trip flying from the West Coast, and we drove on the East Coast, and all that sort of thing. So we really had and saw many people, and met many people, and so on. And I remember how well Elon spoke after that, after him having been away from me for 5 months, how well he spoke to some of the top businessmen I knew in New York. I was quite surprised. I could see it. I would go and meet these businessmen, and they were like really serious people who had designed Grand Central Station and all that sort of stuff. And I remember Elon suddenly speaking up while we were in these conversations and sort of drowning me out. And I thought, wow, gee, because they usually just get quiet, from the past. But he just took over, and then I realized, wow, that's really something. I'll never forget that. And
When he was in high school, did you realize his immense potential that he is?
no, I knew he was very good with computer. So I bought him this computer, which cost like the price of a Mercedes car, when he was 11, and he learned to program on this, and he became very, very good. He had a natural aptitude for it, like some people have for music and so on. And he was able to write programs for all sorts of things for me, and so I realized this would obviously, I didn't, at that time, we weren't so like into the internet and how important all that sort of stuff was. We were, it was like, we were still learning about it, it was figuring it out. I mean, in the 80s, nobody ever heard of the internet, when he had this computer. Although he did say to me, when he was very small, about 12, he showed me a box with a red light on it, which he said, "Dad, this is a modem. And with this, I can communicate with my little computer with a computer at Oxford University." Now, I sort of, I said, "Oh, really?" But I didn't really know what to say, so I just said, "Oh, really? That's great." but so he was really into it, but I didn't expect him to. My main concern was that he would, be employed and make us be all right, that's
Yeah.
the thing. And my main thing is, as a father, and you must always come home. I'm always here, don't worry, you can always come here, you can always come home. And I still say that. I still say that to my children. My one is in Tahiti at the moment. I say to her, "Listen, if things don't work out there, you can come home, please."
I know that.
Okay,
I
right.
witnessed that one. Okay. Sorry, viewers, this question cut off. I'm just going to repeat it. Errol, the author said Elon felt sorry for you after the divorce, and that is why he came back from his mother in La Lucia to stay with you. But a paragraph later, the author stated that his mother said he came as you had 2 encyclopedias and a computer, and that is the reason. So there's now 2 possible reasons. So what is the truth? What happened there?
Well, the computer I got him. He got that a couple of years after he'd come back.
Okay.
So, so he got that at the age of 11.
So he didn't come for the computer, yeah.
No. And he, encyclopedias, I don't know anything about that. We didn't, I think we lost our encyclopedias in a rainstorm. But anyway.
You are the encyclopedias.
Encyclopedias, yeah.
Yeah, you are.
But we had a lot of books. I mean, I have a library of about 500 books. I've read every single, at home, I've read every single book in my library. And some of them I've read twice. Some of them I've read 3 times. And I think of Oscar Wilde, he said, a book is not a book unless you need to read it twice. Anyway, so no, yeah. So what happened was some months or so after he had gone to stay with his mother, I received a note on my desk, handwritten note saying, pick up Elon at Johannesburg station at the next morning. We were in Pretoria, and I went the next morning. I don't know who dropped the note, and there was Elon. He came, I saw the train coming in. Elon's beaming face out the window, little face. He was very small at the time, and out he came, and he had this huge trashy suitcase. I mean, really trashy suitcase, and full of all these things, and he was so happy, and the first thing he said was, "Hey Dad, hi Dad, come on, let's go and get a burger." It's probably 10 o'clock in the morning, but yeah, okay, let's go and get a burger.
Okay.
So I got this message, a written message on my desk, handwritten. Somebody had dropped it at my office saying that I should pick Elon up the next morning at Johannesburg station. I was very surprised, and I went there, and I found this beaming little boy. His head out the window of the train. Hello, Dad. And he was very small, and I took him out, and he had this trashy suitcase with all these things in, real trashy. But anyway, and the first thing he said, "Let's get a burger, Dad. Let's get a burger." So of course. That's how it happened. He was. I put him into the last part of grade 4, so he would have been the last few weeks of grade 4. So he would have been about 9, and he then continued at that same school where he met this boy you mentioned, Danny Warnick, among others that were friends of his, and he finished his primary schooling there. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So. It was not that he felt sorry for you after the divorce. Yeah. So
I'm still waiting for somebody to feel sorry for me. One day.
Okay, so the author also wrote that they saw their mother every weekend. So Johannesburg is about 6 hours from Durban, or 3 hours from Bloemfontein. So did you drive every weekend there? Did you fetch them? Or did they go by train or bus? How did Johannesburg and Durban?
Yes, they're very far apart. So no, she definitely did not see them. Kimmel came later, and she definitely did not see them every weekend.
Okay.
She saw very, very little of them, to be honest with you. And
okay.
So there's no. And you might note that Danny Warnick, who comments in this article that you got. He says that he met my mother and father, but he never says anything about meeting Elon's mother. So he never, and he was with us so often that he would have met.
And he came weekends to you,
Yes, he came weekends with Elon,
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing that this author in this article wrote, she said Tosca's mum tried to let her stay on weekends with you, but Tosca cried and her mama had to fetch her. So
well, I like to give women the chance, ex-wives, to say their things. It's fine, men mistake it. It's like, your gardener complaining. Oh, the women are going to be very upset when I say that. But anyway, so no, that's absolute rubbish. Tosca came as often as possible, and she was more emphatic about coming than I imagine the boys were specifically, or rather, my memory is of Tosca being the one, she wanted to be with me, and she wanted to stay as long as possible. So I would bring her up on long weekends as well, so that she could be with us, you see. And you could say she missed the boys as well, I suppose, But she had her own room, and she had her own horse even, So, I mean, that's rubbish.
Okay. Something else in this article. Who is Snodgrass? Why does the author write Snodgrass?
Bobby Snodgrass is somebody that I went to, I met. He didn't go to any school that I went to, so I don't know where he gets this information that he spoken of. I like him. He's a very nice, good friend of mine. But and we did spend a lot of time together as children. But I don't. He never met Elon. He never met Elon ever.
Oh, so you didn't know him?
No, not at all.
Okay, and then the author wrote that Elon's vision and imagination grew beyond what most of us can comprehend. Then he wrote that Elon might not have received love from you, and that is why Elon got absorbed in encyclopedias and science fiction. So the author is contradicted by Elon's school friend. This school friend described you as very involved with Elon, took them riding to the Fall River on skiing trips, etc. Warnick.
Yes.
And he said he spent many weekends with Elon in Lone Hill in Pretoria.
No, in Johannesburg.
Oh, in Johannesburg, okay. And he states, and I quote, Elon het altyd gelukkig gelyk. Elon looks always happy. En dit het nooit soos 'n gespanne of moeilike verhouding gelyk nie. The relationship never looked tense or difficult. Warnick said, Elon het baie goed met sy pa oor die weg gekom. Elon got along very well with his dad.
That's correct.
Yeah, and his parents were divorced at that stage. So,
yeah, my parents. Oh, you mean Donnie Warnick said it was the stage when my parents. His parents.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, I think Warnick also says in that article that I encouraged Elon all the time, and that I would test him on maths, maths issues if we were driving somewhere. I mean, we talk about going. We had a horse farm, so I mean that was where they had a lot of fun with motorbikes and horses and everything. But we liked to water ski, and the water skiing was very far away, so we had a very long drive to get there. So I would test them, with sort of questions, and they would like compete with each other because Warnick was quite a smart boy as well, and they would compete with each other on the answers. I'd ask them like arithmetic questions, or if it took us so many minutes to get here, how many minutes do you think it'll take us to get to such a place? So they would sit and puzzle it out as primary school children.
I read how far is that mountain over there? How many kilometers?
Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So just this article, we had a few questions about it in our YouTube channel, Data of a Genius. The article is contradicting itself. On the first page, the author wrote that Elon came to you at 12 years, and then the second page that Elon came to you in grade 4, and if I worked it out, then it would be 9 years.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have been, 12 or 13 in grade 4. I think that would have been pretty weird for him.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Okay, thank you, Errol. There's also always a lot of things that people wrote, and it's not necessarily that they have all the facts or that everything has been researched.
Yes, I must say, look, I saw this article and I was sort of pleased, for the first time, certainly on the second page they were talking sense, and on the first page it was just a load of rubbish. So it was nice to see that, and to repeat again, Elon financed himself a South African could not pay for a child to go to university in the United States in 1990. I mean, there was just no possibility because you couldn't sell anything. You couldn't sell anything. The rand was collapsing. I mean, it's obvious. So he did take a loan out for his studies. So did Kimball and so did Tosca. Although I gave them money, and I mean, Tosca used the money for her first year to tour Europe. So instead of going to university, she went and toured Europe, which is great. I think that's wonderful. But Elon paid for his own, borrowed to pay for his own studies, and he sorted that himself. I did the same thing when I was a child. I got a number of scholarships, but I still had to get a job, and work and everything to try and get by. So, but Elon did everything afterwards himself, and to talk about Errols and all that, and family riches, these were things we managed to get by with for a time, but they were not what the press tries to give or some people in the press try to give a completely silly story that Elon was on some sort of he was rich and he had the riches and all this sort of stuff behind him. I mean, in South Africa, people were starting to worry about getting for food. I mean, like they are now in America, with this wonderful Biden guy. So Elon sorted to everything himself, and that's why I raised them. I raised them like that, and I expected that from them. So it wasn't I was super surprised. That's how I raised them, And before that, when we were overseas on trips and things like that, I gave them lots of responsibilities. I mean, I relied on them, and they had to listen to me, and they listened. They did listen, and they learned. They learned what I learned. I learned from clever people, and I passed what I learned on to them, surely. And I would expect them to do the same to their children.
Thank you, Errol. Errol Musk with a lot of background on the Sunday newspaper article. Thank you, Errol.